Hello and welcome everyone on this official platform of Legacy IAS Academy. So today in this session, I'm going to discuss one of the most important thing from the perspective of current affairs as well as politics. Now, what is ideology? How ideologies are created? How ideologies have defined the paths of nations? So these things that I'm going to discuss. So I'm just going to discuss the basic things from the perspective of ideology. You must have heard the terms left wing, right wing. So all these things I will be discussing today in this session. So how ideologies are created, this is our topic. So in this session, we will be discussing each and everything from the beginning itself. Getting my point? That means from the base. So this word ideology, this has very much weightage in terms of politics, in terms of election, in terms of defining allies. So this is a very important concept. So first of all, we'll see some of the things. So for example, how ideologies are created, how capitalism, how liberalism, how Marxism, how these things are defined. What is left wing and right wing? Clear? So we can just trace these things. So first we need to understand the perspective of history since ancient times. So let's go 4 million years back. So 4 million years back, just imagine the world of that time. So at that time there were no civilization, there were no humans or human evolved from monkeys at that time. Getting my point? So around 100,000 years ago, something happened in human brain and then we started to imagine. So around 100,000 years ago, something that has happened, change in our brain, and then we started imagine. Getting my point? So the first thing, imagine. Getting my point? And then that the power of imagination begins. Clear? So now just try to understand, these things are very interesting from the perspective of politics as well as from the perspective of history. So these this imagination has completely changed humans from other animals. Getting my point? So even if you see a monkey or a dog, can't imagine the thing that they did not see. Getting my point? But human brain can imagine anything. This is the difference between animals and human beings. Clear? So we can imagine a flying tortoise. We can imagine anything. Clear? So a gigantic monkey or anything. Getting my point? So we can imagine. Human beings can imagine anything. Now, this power of human being, okay, or human imagination created a phenomenon in human mind. So this power of imagination has created a phenomena in our mind, in human mind. Getting my point? Now, with this, we will just try to understand the things. So now this is 2023. So just let's go 400 years back. That means I would like to give you a timeline that is 1622. Now, what are the important things? Now just imagine. Now again I will say just imagine. So just imagine the world of that time. Okay, what kind of world was there at that time? At that time there was no democracy, there was no nation at that time. So there was no democracy, no nation, only kingdoms used to be there. Getting my point? So during this time period, India was also facing Mughal Empire. Clear? So no industries, no media, no petrol, no diesel, nothing at that time in nearby 1622. So their small village was their small world only at that time. Now today, if you see, we are connected with the world through information, communication and technology, through digital media, digital platforms. Clear? So society was based on an imagined order of God. So around 17th century, so at that time society was based on the imagined order of God, and king was considered as the divine right. King was considered as the supreme authority. king was considered as the representative of God. So at that time, king was having divine authority. Clear? Now, that is why a system was there in Europe. That means son of a king will become king. Getting my point? Because God has chosen him. Then priest was the supreme religious authority. Pope was the supreme religious authority. So only Pope's son can use to be become priest. So only Pope's son or priest's son can become priest because God has chosen him. Then other peoples were happy. So at that time, king, priest, nobles, and other people means common peoples were happy because they used to believe that God decision was there, so there was no revolt. So these social stratification was created by God. That is why at that time there was no revolt. This was the thing was there. Now, so all these things, because all these society, social dimensions were created on the basis of God. So at that time in society, the doctrine of divine order was there. Okay, people used to believe that everything is created by God only. Getting my point? Now, after this, what happened here is intellectual movement started in Europe. That is called as Renaissance. Renaissance was started in Europe. Rebirth of thinking, rebirth of rationalism. Getting my point? So, Renaissance was started in Europe. Scientific inventions took place. So, intellectual movement was started, and this credit goes to philosophers as well as scientists who were born in that era. In that era, in the sense 1600 to 1750. Why 1750? Because 1750 world has seen the biggest revolution, that is industrial revolution. Clear? Now, earlier people used to believe that earth is in the center and sun revolves around it. Getting my point? So many of you may not know this. So earlier people, they used to believe that earth is in the center and sun revolves around it because it was written in Bible. But Galileo, remember this thing, because scientific inventions were there. Getting my point? So Galileo said in 1615 that it's wrong. Actually, sun is in the center, solar system, sun is in the center and earth rotates around it. So this was said by whom? This was said by Galileo. Clear? So apart from this, other French philosophers like René Descartes, he said in 1637. Now what did he say? He said cogito ergo sum. That means I think, therefore I am. That means people started to think and they started to ask questions. Start thinking and ask questions, because earlier people did not ask questions because they assumed that everything was created by God itself. Getting my point? So these thinking process, okay, Renaissance was started in Europe. Clear? Now, after Galileo, Newton gave its equation and the concept of gravity in 1687. Yes. So these are some very important things. Now, the first thing that in the Renaissance movement that started, that people started questioning on doctrine of divine right of God. That what is the proof? Getting my point? So people started challenging this doctrine of divine right of God. Second important thing is, at that time, European society was divided into three classes. Now, what were those three classes? So let me tell you. Now, European society was divided into three classes. So first was clergy, then nobility, and then peasants, means common people. Clergy means priestly class of Europe. Priestly class. Nobility means aristocrats. Peasants means common people. Getting my point? Now, these two classes have all the privileges. These classes were called as privileged class. And peasants, that means common people, these class did not have any privilege. Getting my point? Now just try to understand. So these things were there at that time. So people started thinking. Now let's take the history of France. Now just try to understand the history of France. Now whole Europe was facing Renaissance, means rebirth of ideas or rationalism. Clear? Now just try to understand. Now rebirth of rationalism. Getting my point? Now in 1756 till 1763, so there was a war started between Britain and France. Now this war destroyed French economy. I hope this much is clear to all of you. Clear? Now in 1774, now try to understand the fate of France. In 1774, a new king was coronated in France called as Louis XVI. Getting my point? Louis XVI was coronated as a king of France. Now, this king is considered as a very infamous ruler. Getting my point? Already France, now try to understand background. Already France was facing financial crisis. This was the background. Getting my point? Now, Louis XVI came, and at that time, America, now try to understand, America was the colony of Britain. Clear? Colony of Britain. Now, a war started between Americans and Britain as an American freedom struggle. War started between Americans and British as an American War of Independence. This much is clear to all of you? Now just try to recall that thing, that France was defeated by Britain in 1756 to 1763 war. Now, France will also try to take the you can say take the benefit from that American War of Independence. Getting my point? So now try to understand that in 1776 American War of Independence started, And in 1776 itself, a capitalist society was established in Europe, especially in Germany area. Wealthy people created its society. Getting my point? So now you will see that from 1778 till 1783, again war starts between France and Britain. Now, because of this war, France became bankrupt. So how? Because already economic crisis was there in France, and then in 1774 Louis XVI was coronated as a new king of France, and he supported war with Britain again. Getting my point? So economic crisis became worst. So you will see that because of war and frequent famine in France, this has worsened the situation of France. So people were dying due to hunger. Now in 1783, people were dying due to hunger, economic crisis, bankruptcy. On the other hand, now try to understand. On the other hand, French king imposed more tax on peasants. Now impose more tax on peasants. Now people were dying due to hunger, famine was there, economy was in crisis. On the other hand, this foolish king was imposing more tax on peasants. Why? Because he also wanted to create a new palace at Versailles in France, and with this people will object. Getting my point? So as I have said, there were three classes in France. Clergy, then nobility, and peasants. Now people were having dual burden. People had to pay religious tax to priestly class. Common people of France had to pay religious tax to clergy class, and the same people had to pay nobility tax to nobles. That means peasants were having all the responsibilities, but no authority. The people of France were having only responsibility to pay tax, but no authority. These two classes were exempted from tax, clergy and nobility, exempted from tax. That means only authority, power in France, and no responsibility. Getting my point? So with this you will see, people will deny to pay the tax. Getting my point? So now people will reject these taxes. People will object the policy of king. And then these nobles, so they said, so nobles and clergy, they said this differentiation is done by God, so it should not be challenged. It should not be challenged. So these nobility and clergy, from the beginning itself, they wanted to conserve the old order. That is why now they wanted to conserve the old order. That is why they are called as conservatives. Conservatives or traditionalist. They wanted to conserve the old order, which was based on imagined system of God. Getting my point? So they are called as conservative or traditionalist. Getting my point? Now, another group, so these nobles and clergy consist only 5% of population of France. 95% peoples were peasants, means common people. Getting my point? Who started revolting or revolution in France. Getting my point? So they are called as revolutionaries. Or liberals or radicals. This much is clear to all of you? See, like these ideologies are created. Getting my point? Now finally, the king of France invited, now the revolts were going on, so king of France invited National Assembly in 1789. So in National Assembly, king will be there. Getting my point? And clergy and noble class, that means priestly and noble class, they used to sit on the right side. Now, priestly and nobles, now they used to sit on the right side of the king. That is why now priestly and nobles, they wanted old system. Getting my point? So they are also called as conservatives. They are also called as traditionalist. They wanted that old system. And on the left side, now try to understand, on the left side of the king, peasants who were called as liberals used to sit. So peasants used to sit on the left side of the king. Getting my point? So these conservatives or traditionalists are called as right wing. So from here, these are called as right wing. They became right wing, and liberals became left liberals. Getting my point? And conservatives became right conservatives, and this is how the wings started, and this is still same even today. Getting my point? So right wing is those who wanted to conserve the old system or revive the old system. Getting my point? So this is how left wing and right wing started because of French Revolution. This much is clear to all of you. And finally, you will see that in 1789 on 14th July, French Revolution started. French Revolution started by peasants of France. Peasants of France. And finally in 1792, so too much bloodshed took place. Getting my point? Many nobles and clergies were killed. And finally in 1792, king and queen was publicly executed. Publicly executed in France. And finally in 1792, France transformed. France became republic from monarchy. From monarchy. This is the transformation. Getting my point? Now just try to understand that now what is the most important slogan of French Revolution? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Getting my point? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. And these three words are considered as golden words of democracy. Golden words of democracy. And this revolution of France is supported by those capitalist class, because capitalists initially were traders only, and at that time in Europe the most important classes were clergy and nobles, aristocrats. So capitalists wanted to abolish this system that is based on religion. Getting my point? And this is how you will see that they supported democratic movements in Europe. They supported revolution in Europe, that capitalist organization which was created in 1776. Getting my point? These three are golden words. So from these golden words only, like freedom of expression, human rights, all these concepts came from democracy only. Now the question here is, though this revolution was started in France, this revolution was against Europe's social stratification or social division. This is successful. Okay, this idea, or you can say this concept, is important from the perspective of European social classification. Do you think that this should be universally applicable? That is why Muslim countries, like in Muslim countries, they says that we should not transform from conservative to liberal, because we have only one classification, one division. Getting my point? That is why you will see that in Muslim countries these kind of revolution did not take place. Getting my point? And that is why they says that these revolution like French Revolution, Democratic Revolution, these revolutions were done only as per the social division of Europe. Getting my point? So this is how two wings are created from French Revolution, that is right wing and left wing. Getting my point? So this is the most important thing that we need to understand. And today if you see that in around 90% countries of the world, they have introduced democratic model. This is because of colonialism, and because of colonialism, because of globalization, democracy was introduced in each and every part of the world. So I hope this much is clear to all of you. So this is how ideologies are created. That is why history teach us to understand how politics can be analyzed. Getting my point? So I hope this much is clear to all of you. Clear, everyone? So this is how ideologies are created, and this is how you can say that the world and the nations are created on the basis of ideologies. So in each and every nation, there are political parties based on different ideologies. So I hope this much is clear to all of you. Thank you so much.